Hello and welcome to Eye on South Asia. I'm Bhavna Vannan.
And I'm Sunil Hali.
Every week we'll discuss the latest events, news, and all the happenings with South Asians in North America. Let's get started with our first top story for this week.
Bhavna, it's a sad story. We lost an outstanding Indian in America. He was the managing director of Green Hill, and it was right in our neighborhood in New Jersey. His plane crashed, and he and his partner had just taken off from the Teterboro airport, and I think they were going to Atlanta for an official trip, and right bang on in the morning, the plane crashed on Route 287 near Morristown. And from what has been found out is that there was some issue with the icing conditions during
It's
the
weather related.
Yeah, and the flight controllers were kind of getting affected. But I guess the time was here and the plane crashed.
Right. It's
He
very
was an
unfortunate.
outstanding person, and he actually graduated from McIntyre College, and everybody has great words for him, whether he's dean from the McIntyre College, or you talk about his MBA he did from Wharton, and then obviously he worked in several companies, Credit Suisse, Blackstone, and one of the biggest thing he goes to his credit, he made him big and famous, was he advised the Treasury Department of US, who had aggressively invested to bail out American International Group during the downturn in 2008, October, November.
Right.
And he reworked the buyback in 2008. It was a big thing for him. And very family person, very typical immigrant who is always looking for family values, who is always looking to build, who is always looking to make things better, do better. In fact, he would always go to his college alma mater and recruit students from there and bring them back into the jobs.
Right.
So everything good about him, and such a short life for him. He was only 36 years old.
Yeah, he's very young.
Our heart goes for him.
Definitely.
So I guess moving on to the next story, which is interesting. Finally, after 6 months, United States of America has found the ambassador to India. It was becoming kind of a sore subject between India and America. For 6 months, I think the last person who was holding the position, Timothy Romer, who was a very able U.S. ambassador to India, left in June. And since then, the Obama administration has been looking for one after the other, and generally they were looking at people who are mostly Republicans, but they were somehow not agreeing to it. And it seemed at one point that there may be no ambassador, or possibly somebody else, at a lower level of affairs, but that would reflect very badly, knowing that Indo-American relationship at the point they are in today.
Right.
And India would be very upset, which they were already, that it's like, you're neglecting us.
Yes.
So finally they have found a guy, the girl, Nancy Powell, has been appointed as the new ambassador.
Right. And she's actually, as opposed to being, of a lower level of affairs, she's described as being a South Asianist because she has experience with assignments in other South Asian projects as well. So she
In
definitely
fact, she was in
experience.
India. She was in India earlier, where she was the Consul General in Calcutta, and she was also a political counselor in New Delhi. And she has already served a term in Pakistan. She has served a term in Nepal. And obviously, she, like you said, she's kind of considered to be South Asian. So that gives her some good position going into it. At a time when the relationships are peaking.
Right.
But thank God, bottom line is that Nancy Powell, who is, an absolutely able person and a career diplomat, is actually the first woman. You should be proud.
Right, definitely.
First woman to become the U.S. ambassador to
India. Right.
So
definitely.
I think it's looking very interesting. You have the women ambassador from Pakistan to US, and now you have a women ambassador from US to India.
Right.
Who knows?
It's a very diverse group now.
You have now the the women ambassador from India to US. So it seems like women are in control, and Mrs. Hillary
Definitely.
Clinton, as the Secretary of State, who is directly interacting with the ambassadors of each of the countries, is becoming a women's club.
Right. They're definitely taking charge.
Yep.
So it's a good thing.
On the United Nations front, at the tail end of the year, when the year comes to an end, one thing is clear, that our man in charge there, Mr. Manjeev Puri, Ambassador Manjeev Puri, who is the charge affairs of India to the United Nations, who was addressing about the situation in Afghanistan at the United Nations Security Council, said, look, India has been constantly looking to rebuild Afghanistan. It pays a serious attention to it. It has maintained its independent relationship with Afghanistan, and the biggest thing that the India's position vis-a-vis rest of the world, or majority of the world, is that India genuinely supports an Afghan-led, Afghan-owned, Afghan-opposed to an internationally led process, accompanied by inclusive political process and inter-Afghan dialogue with those who renounce violence. So it's not that we are saying, we will come and tell you what to do.
Right. It's not an outside force coming in and dictating terms. It's
Exactly.
they're owning everything.
And India believes very strong, independent, sovereign, stable, united, democratic, and prosperous Afghanistan, which is the reason why the relationship between Afghanistan and India have been very, very strong. Even though recently the president from Afghanistan made a statement, regardless of what happens, we are brothers with Pakistan, which kind of was a little confusing, conflicting, but maybe it was just to create a better atmosphere because of the tensions. Other than that, Afghanistan has always been India's friend, so it has been, or trying to be, a friend with Pakistan as well, because they're contiguous.
They're
and
neighbors,
they have,
exactly.
Yes. So I think very interesting that India's position in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan being the boiling point for some years, for quite some years, almost now 1.5 decades, but India's position has been appreciated.
Right.
On the other hand, some unpleasant development with the United States. I think it has to do with economy and continuous belief, or probably some political reasons. The American, the decision that they have made about the legislation they have brought in against the outsourcing of call centers works to countries which includes India.
Yes.
India provides tons and tons of call centers to lots of countries in the world, not just United States of America. And US has come up with a legislation against outsourcing. And our ambassador in Washington, D.C., Mrs. Nirupama Rao, said, we are studying it, and obviously we will be looking to counter this US bill. She has been rather very factual, saying, look, we have not taken jobs away. We have added jobs to US.
Right. She actually says that with this relationship, business-wise, it's Indian investments have actually created around 65,000 jobs in the U.S. over just the past year.
And you see, the Indo-US relationship is anchored on business, trade, technological cooperation, peace, and development efforts in countries like Afghanistan and other defense tie-ups. I mean, look at US is looking to invest from what has been declared almost $1 trillion in India. And over the next decade in infrastructure alone. And you have the US Commerce Secretary John Bryson, who is visiting India in March 2012 to go and study, to go and discuss, to go and plan the implementation of all this. In the middle of it, they come back with a legislation which is kind of inclusive, rather exclusive, and very inward. It doesn't set a good tone for it, but I am sure there are political tones behind it.
Definitely. But, that's definitely, I don't think that's the way to move forward, because there's so much partnership being built at this point that it's definitely just going to...
It should be strengthened, just like he is doing by going to India in the month of March.
Exactly.
On our neighboring front, like what has happened recently, as we've been telling our viewers, Pakistan has become kind of a bargaining front. You have China, Russia, and America now trying to show they are the best friends. On one side, America wants to use Pakistan, that has been doing for all these years, as a friend, ally in Afghanistan, where they thought they had a silken roots there, but necessarily not true, because it became a quicksand for most major powers, including US and Russia. And on the other hand, you look at Pakistan touched China because they thought China will be able to help us, because they are constantly helping them on the nuclear front. But China has pulled out a huge investment opportunity, which is a $19 billion deal that the Kingo Group was looking to invest in Pakistan, and they have pulled it out.
And this is for building coal mines, power, and chemical plants, correct?
And the reason behind that is very similar reason, just like India, that the Pakistan had made a promise to China on the western border. They will be helping, streamline the insurgency, and rather than that, it seems the Chinese government alleges that the Pakistan front is being used for training the militants who are creating more disturbance there. So China is no India. They don't take things lying down. They just take their action and say, get out. And I'm sure that will put pressure on Pakistan and make sure they get their act right.
Right.
They
that pressure is always there.
Absolutely.
In regards to Pakistan. So,
Mr. Headley, who was one of the leading architects, the David Headley, and Lashkar founder Hafiz Saeed, and two ISIS officers who were involved in the November 2011, 2611 as it is called, attack on the Bombay, and the terrorist attack, have been officially charged in Indian courts. But if you think about it, there's not much we are getting from David Headley, because he's not being really thrown into India to be able to be investigated, because he has agreed to be kind of an approver and play on the side of the investigators. So there is sort of protective towards him.
Right.
But thank God that these two gentlemen, who along with the other ISI officers have been finally charged, and let's hope this takes some direction. The guy who was picked up actually inside the hotel after the bombing is still being tried. Here is a situation, David Headley is still being tried. I don't know what is the best way.
I think they would get a lot of information if there was a proper trial going on, and in the case of David Headley.
I think it's more a political thing than actually a criminal investigation or leading it to some kind of a judgment about it.
Right. Okay, we're going to have to wrap up this segment, and we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back. Stay tuned.